Today's class is dedicated by Dina and Eliyahu Schusterman from Atlanta, Georgia, in tribute to the yeshiva.net for helping our generation live to its fullest potential. Thank you very, very much, Rabbi and Rabbi Schusterman. We appreciate it very deeply. Hatzlacha muflaga, Bakel, Mikael, Kail. Okay. V'hinei ksiv. The pasuk says in Tehillim Perek Lamed Zayin, Shchon Eretz Ure'ei Emuna. This is a verse in Tehillim in Psalms chapter Lamed Zayin 37. David HaMelech says, B'tach b'Hashem v'asei tov, Shchon Eretz Ure'ei Emuna. Literally it means trust God and do good. Shchon Eretz, then you'll dwell on the earth, you'll dwell in the land. Eretz is the land. Ure'ei Emuna. Re'ei emuna is a very interesting term. What does that mean? So Rashi says on Tehillim, Re'ei emuna means you'll shepherd. Re'ei is from the word roya, like a roya is a shepherd. Re'ei emuna, you will get nurture, you will shepherd yourself through your faith. In other words, your emuna, your faith, will shepherd you, will sustain you. A shepherd sustains the flock, a shepherd protects the flock. Re'ei, you'll be nurtured, you'll receive reward, you'll be shepherded, You'll be protected from your emuna, from your faith. That's literally what it means, Re'ei emuna. The Alter Rebbe teaches here a new pshat Re'ei emuna, the deeper meaning of Re'ei emuna. He says, Pirush Re'ei mefarnes. The taich of a roya, a shepherd, is someone who takes care, mefarnes, like from the word parnasa, sustains, nurtures, protects. So Re'ei emuna is Re'ei is mefarnes. Shetzarech lefarnes ulahamshich mozen lahagdil es emuna ad shetiyeh kvuya b'leiv adam gam kein b'bchinas daas v'argasho keilu roya. Emuna needs to be shepherded. Literally, you teach Re'ei emuna that the emuna will shepherd you, meaning, and it actually says your emuna will bring you reward. But it's not, Re'ei emuna literally means shepherd the emuna, not you'll be shepherded from the emuna. So he says the emuna needs to be shepherded. Because we spoke before that there's two experiences. There's daas and there's emuna. Daas represents, the first section of the Maimon, the first two chapters. Daas represents something that is visceral knowledge. It's intimate knowledge. It's awareness that is real. You can have chachma bina, which is abstract, could be abstract. And daas is really its application. It's applied to you. It says, Va'adam yades chava adam nu chava. And she mothered her children, Cain and Hevel. So it doesn't mean Adam yades chava abstractly. He knew her. He knew about her intellectually. Yada is an expression of connection, of intimacy, of oneness. So when you speak about knowledge, it's knowledge that is real. It's integrated. It's integrated into the person. And that's why daas requires so much self-awareness. Because daas is not about information on a computer or information in a book. That Google has much better than you'll have. Daas is information that's engraved. It's chakuk. It's in Tanya chapter 3 it says Loshen is kashrus v'hischabrus. You're connected to it. That's why daas is considered the parent of emotion, because it's the bridge between the mind and the emotions, including the emotions felt in the body. So b'meila, daas requires self-awareness because it's always about how it's affecting me and what are the blockages inside of me not allowing it to affect me or not allowing it to resonate with me or permeate me. So daas requires a tremendous amount of self-awareness because it's about the idea being integrated. So daas, he says, is visceral. It's very real. It's experiential intellect. It's not abstract intellect. He says that's like a person sees something. That's how real it is, even though it's something that you can't see. You're talking about daas here, of a higher reality, of the ultimate reality of Hashem. So it's not something that's reduced to physical matter that my eye is going to be able to detect. You need a higher eye. They call it the third eye, the higher eye, the ultimate eye, eye as in E-Y-E and eye as in eye, the eye. But mipsari echze leka, like Eov said, from my flesh, I perceive Hashem, and he uses the word echze, which is a translation of re'iyah, v'ata sechze, seeing, chazoin Yeshayahu, we just had it in the Haftarah. Yeshayahu saw a vision. I'll see it just like I see it with my eyes, even though I don't see it with my eyes, but that's how real it is. So daas by definition is pnimius. He says, what you have to make sure is that there's no hesach hadas, that your daas is not removed. It remains real, focused, attentive. And it's hard because it's very, very easy to get dysregulated. And even if the information is there, but the daas is not there. Daas means it's integrated. For this, I need to be regulated, because if not, it can't really go into me. There's no system. The system is chaos, chaotic. A regulated nervous system allows for daas. A dysregulated nervous system doesn't allow for daas. So that's daas. Then there's emuna. What did he say emuna is? So he explained the difference between, we spoke at length, the difference between Malik Kalam and Sefer Kalam. That the element of the divine permeating the world, tailor-made to every single creature according to its identity, constituting the inner chemistry of creation, and every nook and cranny of it, every detail of it, that's where daas comes in. And as he said in Perek Bais, this is connected to Malik Kalam. Then there is the tool set we call emuna. What is emuna? Emuna, this we call faith. This is something that's higher than daas. What does it mean that it's higher than daas? It's not that there's emuna that could be lower than daas. There's emuna that's higher than daas. There's a big difference. Emuna that's lower than daas is, I don't want to use my daas, so I just have emuna, I believe you. Yeah. But real emuna, he says, emuna is that the daas is used as much as a daas can be used. But daas, even profound daas, and even authentic daas, can take you to a certain space. It could show you the door, could take you till the door. Maybe you could peek a little bit in, but then daas says, sorry, I don't have a ticket to pass. There's a certain place I can't pass, not because I don't want to, not because I'm afraid in the sense of, I'm afraid if we discuss certain things. It's just, we're touching a reality that the nature, the chemistry of the brain and the mind of how it works, simply, it can't contain it. So it could do one of two things. The stupid thing that some people do, I don't know if the word is stupid, but the more foolish thing is, you say it doesn't exist. If I don't understand it, it doesn't exist. But we understand how narrow that is, how not daas that is. The mature thing that daas is, or I should say, it's more than mature, it's the spiritual sensitivity of daas is, it lets go. It lets go and it opens itself up to something that's infinite. It lets go. It lets go of the need to be structured and even to understand, to be able to experience that which is beyond daas. And emuna is a skill of the soul. It's not something, again, faith is not, I want to be lazy. I'm not interested in investigation. I don't want to scrutinize. I'm b'chlal lazy and I want to sit on my couch. So I call it emuna. That's why he doesn't want to use the word daas. He doesn't want to apply emuna to that which you use daas. If you could use daas, don't use emuna for it. As he said, what the world calls emuna, toyimem, it's a mistake. You don't need emuna for it. You need good daas. You need to open your eyes. You need to be attentive. You need to be real. You need to be authentic. You need to tune in. You have to get rid of your biases. And just like our physical eyes can show us that which lends itself to be perceived by the physical eyes, and our physical ears can detect those voices that lend themselves to be detected by our physical ears, and our minds allow us to detect or to absorb stimuli that can be experienced through our physical brains and minds, there's another skill of the soul, and it's called emuna. Emuna is that, I'm using the word skill because I don't have another word, but it's like a sense of the soul, like call it a sixth sense. You have 5 senses that allow you to detect reality. I can touch it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can see it, I can hear it, and I know it's here. That's usually how we detect reality. We all understand there may be deeper realities that I have to use other forms of senses. You have a deeper sense called emuna that when cultivated, it allows the person to experience ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is beyond seichel. Ultimate reality is sevav kalalman. And ultimate reality is the reality we spoke about, the pure infinity that is pre-creation and post-creation, where there's oneness, and that's where emuna comes. And that was the main point. On this, the pasuk says, "Ure'ei emuna." Emuna needs to be shepherded. When you have flock grazing, and there's no shepherd there, what happens? They become emaciated. They're there, but they're starving. Nobody is there to raise them, to develop them, to make sure they're healthy, they're on a good diet, they have air, they have oxygen, they have water, they have nutrition, they have food. That's what a good shepherd does. Emuna has to be shepherded. The emuna is there. It's somewhere there. But Ure'ei emuna, it's a mitzvah. Ure'ei emuna, shepherd your emuna, allow your emuna to develop. That's what a good shepherd does. Allow your flock to develop. That's just to be mefarnes it, to give it food, lahagdilas emuna, to the point that it should become integrated like daas. So feed your emuna, nurture your emuna to make it from something that's makif, that's transcendental, as powerful as it is, to be something that's pnimis, that's integrated. Ke'ilu raya. This is what it says about the future when Mashiach comes. The Navi says, Yeshayahu Yud Aleph. Isaiah 11, we say it in the Acharon Shel Pesach. Famous pasuk. Umala ha'aretz daas Hashem kamayim layam mechasa. Yeshaya Navi says the earth will be filled with divine knowledge, divine awareness, like the water covers the sea. The Rambam finishes his whole Yad HaChazaka also with this pasuk. So he says, what's pshat? So literally it means ha'aretz is the earth, the physical earth will be filled with deya, like the water is covered with the sea. So the earth will be covered with deya Hashem. He says there's also a deeper interpretation. Pirush ha'aretz hiya emuna, shenikra b'shem eretz. In Kabbalah and Chassidus, the word eretz is also associated with emuna. Why? Shehiya madrega tachtoina she'ein bagili ela emuna bilvad. Eretz represents the earth, the lowest level, on the bottom, the earth, daimim. So he says the eretz is the lowest level. She'ein bagili ela emuna bilvad. The revelation over there is only emuna. Ki knows tchilasan b'soifon, because the beginning, it says in Sefer Yetzirah, the beginning is etched in the end. So he says she'ein gili tchilasan ela b'bchinas soifon. The revelation of the tchila, of the beginning, is always all the way at the end, not in the middle. Ubchinas emuna zu, this eretz, which is emuna, tiya meleya deya. This eretz will be filled with deya. Shetiya b'bchinas hakara v'argasha kilu roya. That the eretz, which is what we call emuna, we'll see in a moment, is going to be filled with daas, that the emuna will be recognized and felt as though you see it. That's what it says in Yeshaya there, that the glory of Hashem will be revealed and all flesh will see that the mouth of Hashem spoke. What is he saying here? Why is Eretz called emuna? Because, so he says Eretz is the lowest level, and it doesn't have Gilui Ela Emuna Balad Kenot Chilasim B'Seif. When you say the word emuna, it means faith. So he applies it to the word eretz. On one hand, emuna is capturing that which daas can't capture. It's beyond seichel, it's beyond intellect. That's why it's called emuna. So it's touching the highest. No, it's tchilasan. Where does it come out? It comes out b'seifon. It comes out in eretz. So eretz is called the earth. And he says that's representative of emuna. The Baal Shem Tov used to say that the pshittus von a pasha yid riert on pshittus ha'atzmos. The simplicity of a simple Jew touches the simplicity of the essence. On one hand, it's the simplicity, eretz. It's not sophisticated and enlightened and educated and brilliant and profound. But that knows tchilasim b'soifan. That simplicity, that pshitis, touches the simplicity that is beyond all sophistication. So on one hand you say, all this person has is emuna. Emuna is like a faith. Yeah. The pasuk says in Shlomo Melech says in Mishlei, Pesi yamin l'chol davar. Right, a fool believes everything. V'arum yavin davar la'ashura. And a clever person understands things. So it's like a denigrating pasuk. If you're a fool, you believe things. And if you're arum is like you're sly, you're clever. It's klug, v'anocher shaya arum, then you understand things. If you're a fool, you believe. It's snowing outside, I believe you. Huh? Pesiyam l'chol davar. Then you have a Medrash in Shmois. It's a strange Medrash. The Medrash says, Pesiyam l'chol davar, zeh Moshe Rabbeinu. Wait, really? Halavai, all fools should be as intelligent as Moshe. This is the example. It says that Moshe was, the Rambam calls Moshe mifcher min ha'enushi, the ultimate in what a human being can be. Talking about his wisdom, Moshe's wisdom. This is Pesiyam l'chol davar. It's hard to understand. So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, in chapter 18, he says that's the oimik of what emuna is. He says, if you're dealing with something that's intelligent, it's something that the intelligence can absorb, then pesiyam l'chol davar, then what are you believing? Do your investigation, and takeh, if I'm a fool, I just believe. But if you're dealing with something that leis machshava tfisa, no thought can grasp, something that's essentially ein soif, here, seichel is the greatest detriment, it's the greatest obstacle. He has a lashon that hakol, since leis machshava tfisa, hakol kipsayim etzlo yizbarach. Everybody is like a fool. And he explains there a pasuk in Tehillim, very interesting. It says in Tehillim, Ayin Gimel, David HaMelech says, V'ani var v'loy eda behemei sayisi imach v'ani tamid imach. V'ani var means I'm ignorant. V'loy eda, I know nothing. Behemei sayisi imach, I'm like a behemah. V'ani tamid imach, and I'm always with you. So literally it means I know nothing, I'm ignorant, I'm stupid, I'm foolish, I'm petty, I'm like an animal, but I'm with you. Well, the Rebbe teaches, no, one depends on the other. Because ani bar v'lo yeda behemus hayisiyimach, therefore v'ani tamid imach. Therefore I could be with you. Because I don't have the identity of the faculty that will be the obstacle that will eclipse you. So on one hand, emuna touches the highest reality. But where does it touch the highest reality? It touches the highest reality. Dafke and Eretz. The person stripping themselves from everything they're comfortable with and their comfort zone and their enlightenment and their brilliance and their identity and their milas, because over there the mila becomes a chisaron. Here, pesayam and l'chol davar. Zem Moshe Rabbeinu. Dafke Moshe Rabbeinu knew how to be a fool more than smart people. Smart people are afraid of being fools because you're going to think they're dumb. Moshe wasn't. You're right. You're right. You're right. When you go into the office and you have to practice as a lawyer, you got to be a lawyer. If the lawyer says, "Ich verstehe gar nicht, ich bin a scheitich," that you tell your wife when you come home. I don't know if you tell your wife. You tell yourself when you have to say it. You're right. Those realities that seichel needs, if I'm trying to learn a piece of Gemara and I say, I believe the Gemara, I believe Abaye knew what he was talking about, I trust him. He was a good man, he was an honest man. That's not how learning is. I need to understand what Abaye is saying. I need to understand why Rav is arguing with him. Yeah.
So did Moshe have an emuna, or he didn't have to have an emuna?
So even Moshe, when it comes to ultimate infinity, even Moshe says, he needs emuna.
Why he doesn't need emuna? Because
It's not he needs emuna. He had emuna is the link with infinity. That's what it means.
You would think that the bunch of Moshe was on such a level of connection.
Ein echanami. So what for other people need emuna, he didn't. But there's higher and higher and higher. You're right. For what other people need emuna, Moshe didn't need emuna. He says you should believe him that there's more. So vani var v'lo yed the behemoth. They say an old Bais. It reminds me sometimes when you read science today, or scientists, not science. When you read articles of scientists, it reminds me today, especially certain scientists. They say that there was a big summit, a conference, a world summit of all the fools in the world that happened after Shlomo Melech wrote Pesach Yam L'Chol Davar. A fool believes everything. So the fools made a summit, an emergency, for 3 days. What was the summit? They said, till now we can eclipse our foolishness. We could present ourselves and nobody knew we were stupid. But now Moshe Rabbeinu, Shlomo HaMelech, he exposed us. He removed the lid because he gave the criteria. He says, fools believe everything. So now, they know who we are. Till now, I could mix among the crowd and look intelligent. Was tut man? We will forever have the reputation of being foolish. So you know what they decided, yeah? They decided we're not going to believe anything. And that was the conclusion. And now nobody will be able to identify us. And as I geblieben, Moshe Shlomo Melech said, Pesach Yam L'Chol Davar, and now we won't believe anything. We have a lot, especially in our communities, we have a lot of cynicism. What's cynicism? Cynicism is people were hurt because they trusted. They believed. When you're a kid, you trust the people around you. And then suddenly you realize that not everybody is as innocent or has the integrity you thought they had. So a very natural response, especially among certain people who come to the shiur and other people, not only people who come to the shiur, is you become cynical about everything and everybody. Pesach Yam L'Chol Davar, I'm not going to be a fool. I believe nothing. What happens is we also cut ourselves off from our innocence. We allow people who are less, who sometimes surrender to the lower angels of human nature, to kill the innocence inside of us, the emuna inside of us. So sometimes the fool believes everything, and then sometimes the fool hurts himself by saying, I don't believe anything. I shut off, I close myself off to my own depth. Why? Because I need to now control everything. But by controlling everything, what do I remain? I remain in a very small orbit. So that's the gift. Emuna is a gift. It's the gift of being part of Ein Sof. But where is it expressed? It's expressed dafke in Eretz. Dafke in the lowest place. No, it's Chilasam B'Seifon, and that's why it's called earth. What does it have? It has nothing but emuna. Malach ha'aretz daas Hashem means that this Eretz will become filled with v'nigla k'vayid Hashem v'rochal basar, so that what was in the b'china of emuna can become like daas. That's the idea. Malach ha'aretz daas Hashem kamayim le'amachas. Oh, good question. So what happens with emuna then? So because we're dealing with Ein Sof, with infinity, so there's always emuna. Right. So it's just elevated. What was emuna today becomes daas tomorrow, and the emuna then is elevated to a much higher space, and etc. ad infinitum. I saw from Reb Melech Biderman, That's it's not you need to. It's not you need to. You get to. Get rid of the word need and replace it with the word get.
It's like ultimate daas. What else can you desire?
This is what he's looking for. Emuna is the gift of surrender. It's the gift of letting go of all control. It's the gift of opening myself up to that which I completely can't understand. There's something so liberating about it. It's difficult because we love control, but it's something so liberating when you can let go. On one hand, what do I have? It's not integrated into my identity. That's why it's called Eretz. In many ways, it's the lowest level. But in that lowest level, you have the everything. Noah's tchilas and you have everything over there. How do you have everything? Not in a way that's integrated into the identity. It's because I could let go of the identity. It's a very liberating experience. Try it out. But it's very emotional. It's really, really letting go. You know, it's like when sometimes life doesn't bring people to that space. I guess you could say they're lucky. I don't know if they're lucky or they're not lucky. But sometimes life becomes so unbearable that if you're going to control it, you're going to break. You're going to destroy it. Essentially, let me put it in romantic terms. When life becomes unbearable, chas v'shalom al teveinu l'dei nisayon, everybody's life should be blissful and amazing and blessed. But sometimes there's moments, let's call it moments, when you feel life becomes unbearable. If you want the Likkutei perspective, it's infinity knocking on your door. Infinity is knocking on your door. As long as finiteness knocks on your door, you can open the door and say, come on, I have a beautiful living room. Sit down on the couch. And that's how we like, come into my dining room, come into my kitchen, come into my brain. When infinity knocks on the door, so I keep it out as much as I can, you close the door. But sometimes it breaks down the door. And then what does it look like? All the walls come crumbling down. There's no walls anymore. Right? You can call it a Churban Beis HaMikdash, essentially. The walls come crumbling down.
Why? Why does it have to always, why does the thing end? You need to feel like...
The moment you start a question with the word why, I don't know where I'm supposed to answer.
Why can't it be a blissful experience? I know ultimately it is. If one allows it.
It could be a blissful, it should be, but
Why does its arrival have to be like the abyss?
the ultimate reason why we go through the abyss, I don't know the reason for that. I don't know that anybody knows the reason. If we talk about the reality of it, though, the journey from ego to death of ego always travels through grief. It always travels through grief. Maybe there's a few souls that don't, but it usually just, there's a lot of grief. There's the grief of letting go. It's fearing, there's letting go, number one. And there's also the grief of the contrast. You know, when it's also grief that comes from, the more bliss, there's more grief, because you see the contrast between one self and another self. That's painful.
Because we have walls. That's why. If we didn't have walls, it would be blissful.
Yeah, it's the pain of living within walls that I could control, that I can shape, that I can craft, and allowing those walls to break down. That's very hard. It's very hard. Not only that, the ego will scream, you're killing yourself. This is death. This is death. Either you're going to go insane, or you're going to go crazy. That's the same thing usually. Or worse, there won't even be anybody to go crazy. And at that moment, I'm like Eretz. I'm just like a piece, like the earth, literally like the earth. The magic of the earth is, it doesn't have opinions. Like it's there to absorb reality. You put the seed in the earth, and the miracles happen. The earth doesn't mix in. The earth doesn't have an ego. Everybody steps on it. But no, it's chilasim b'soif, and the power of growth, of vegetation. The closest thing we get to yesh meyayin is in the Eretz. Hakol hayam in afer. And the power of Eretz is just absorbs. It absorbs. It doesn't give opinions. You put the seed in, it gets the water, and boom, things happen. It just holds, they call it holding space. Eretz holds space. And in holding space, tremendous things happen. And that's really what emuna is. Emuna means trust. It's holding space for reality that's beyond me. I just hold space. So what's the role of I? The role of I is to be like the Eretz. Like the mother's womb. Is like we call it Mother Earth. The feminine earth, Mother Earth. I would say in relationships also, it's one of the most powerful things we can do. Be like the earth. Hold space. Often as parents or teachers or friends, I feel like I have to educate you and teach you and tell you what to do and fix you. Especially when it comes to parents and children, you see your children going through a process, and we want to educate them and teach them and tell them all the right things to do and fix them and make them mention so they could turn out as perfect as Tati or as Mommy. And we desperately, and especially if you're a good parent, it's so hard to see the pain in the other. It's like, I just want to get rid of the pain. But sometimes the deepest thing you can do, and how do I know it's the deepest? First of all, you see the results, and second of all, you see how hard it is. So you know that it's the deepest. The deepest thing you can do is, can you really see me? Can you just see the other? Can you really see them? And just know that there's unbelievable potential there. But really see it. And that's hard. Because it's really believing in what there is. And that's what the earth does. The seed comes in, the earth doesn't give opinions and say, where were you all these years, you shaita? The earth just, oh, you're here. Let me hold space. And I see you. It's literally, the earth sees the seed. How do you know the earth sees the seed? Because the seed suddenly removes its coat. It removes its garments. It removes its defense. A seed has a defense mechanism. It's called a coat. The reason a seed has a coat is because if it wouldn't have a coat, wherever you would put it, a little sun, it would start sprouting. You would put it on your bookshelf, it starts sprouting. You know what happens over there? There's nothing. It dies. So it protects itself. The coat protects it literally like a coat. It does not allow itself to open up, not in the right time and not in the right place. Suddenly in the earth, the seed says, geschmack. The earth doesn't do anything. Today we know the earth doesn't do anything, but it does everything. The earth does nothing, but it does everything because it does nothing. Because it does nothing, it doesn't mix in its ego. So what happens? All the miracles happen. The seed comes out. The seed has everything. There's already a baby plant in the seed. There's a baby plant. The seed has a seed coat. It has a baby plant, little tiny plant, and it has what's called endosperm, which is re'eh. It has all the food it needs. It's all in the seed. That's why you could live 1,000 years and it's fine. It's alive, even though it looks dead. And the earth just allows it come out. And suddenly the feet start kicking. We call it roots. And then the hands start moving and punching. We call it shoots. And a few years later, you have your beautiful orange or apple tree here in the backyard. Cherry tree. You understand that inyan of holding space with bittul, trusting, essentially, that's what emuna is. And it relates to emuna in another person, which is ultimately rooted, emuna in Hashem. And emuna in yourself too. So on one hand, the emuna is like the lowest level. It's eretz. What is it? I'm just letting go. So who am I? Nothing. It's eretz. But in that eretz, you have everything. No, it's tchilasim b'soifa. Mala ha'aretz deyas Hashem. When Mashiach comes, that eretz will be saturated with deya. Because it'll be fully integrated. V'nigla k'vayt Hashem v'rochal basar. It doesn't take away from daas, yeah? Like he says. Daas is the awareness. Daas is tuning in. Daas is understanding what we can understand, and there's plenty we can understand in our limited way. And one is not liberated from that. One is not say, just let go. You have to have something to let go from. If I just live my life, I just let go of everything. I'll just sit here for... I need to show up with the tools I have. That's no question. They say two people fail in life. Those people who don't have a plan and those people who stick to their plan. You understand? That's a very, very important idea in life. A plan you need. Somebody opens up a company, a business, an organization. You need a plan. But don't stick to it. Don't stick to it. All the companies that went down in the last few years, they had a plan and they stuck to it. In our generation especially, you got to be open. You got to be open. The earth doesn't have a plan. It has a plan, but it doesn't stick to it. Oh, it's a different type of seed? Okay, I thought we were getting an orange. Okay, we're getting blueberries. I love blueberries. I don't like blueberries. Why don't you like blueberries? Yeah, the Melech Bidamin, I saw a story, because I never saw it in any Chabad sources, but I saw it from him. I guess it's from some source, from another source. That the Alter Rebbe was once at a chasana. And there was a batchen there. And the batchanim would, they would have all these interesting rhymes and insights and perspectives. And this Batchen happened to be a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. So he couldn't do Batchanas in front of the Alter Rebbe, so he had a little to drink, or a lot to drink. And then he started his Batchanas. So he says he's sitting in front of the Alter Rebbe by the chassan. I guess it was a chassan of a relative. And he tells the Alter Rebbe, I gave a lot of thought, and I decided that there's a very small difference between you and me. And he says, was ich weiß, weißt ihr euch. Was ihr weißt nicht, weiß ich euch nicht. Ich weiß der Chilik, so da Sachen, was ihr weißt und ich weiß nicht. Huh? He tells the Alter Rebbe, I don't see a big difference between you and I. What I know, you also know. Okay, so we're equal. What you don't know, I also don't know. So what's the difference? There's some things that you know, and I don't know. That's the difference. And then he said, but then this man added, he said, aber was ist der Erech von was ihr weißt, legabe dem was ihr weißt nicht. But how do you compare that which you know relative to that which you don't know? And he said that Alter Rebbe started to cry when he heard that. Right? So you understand what he was saying here? What you know, I know. What I know, you know. So we're good. I'm sorry. What I know, you also know. What you don't know, I also don't know. Okay, so what's the difference? The difference is the stuff you know and I don't know. And there's a lot of stuff that Alter Rebbe knew that he didn't know. But he says, how do you compare that to that which you don't know? So basically, you and I are more or less equal. He was toifus this nekuda, yeah. In this nekuda of eretz, of bittul, of emuna, you have everything. Fakert, sometimes the pesi yaman l'chol davar, because it doesn't have to be sophisticated. Sometimes the simplest people are the smartest people, because they're simple. They're not self-conscious. They don't have to perform. They don't have to be anything. They don't have to be. You don't have to be impressive. There's a Chabad shliach I know, so he tells me that he was going to give a lecture in his community. So before he leaves, your wife preps you. A good wife preps her husband. So he says, she tells him, don't try to be funny. Don't try to sound intelligent. Don't try to be creative, artistic, engaging, interesting, dramatic, charismatic. So he said, so what should I do? She said, be yourself. Just be yourself, Boom. Good boost of self-confidence. That's called being the earth, right? She just turned them into artistical edits. Just be yourself, dumb, stupid. So I told the story to my wife. She said, that's not what she meant. She meant he should allow his natural wisdom to emerge and not try to concoct it. Okay? Women understand women. Min b'minoi chayze v'neir. But that's the inyan of eretz. What you know, legabi, what you don't know, what value is there? Touched Alter Rebbe so much that he says Zolguein of the Moyes. He started to cry. So Pesi Yaman l'chol davar dafka Moshe, more than other people, because Moshe had so much daas, so therefore he understood how much he didn't understand, much more than others. Others think I don't understand because I didn't read it yet. I'll read it, I'll understand it. I'll learn it, I'll have another few years. Moshe understood that he didn't understand more. So his need to let go was even more. Because he faced things that other people didn't have to face. Elisha ben Avuya, when he went into the orchard, he didn't come back the same. Ben Zoyma didn't come back the same. Ben Azai passed away. Ben Zoyma lost his mind. Rabbi Akiva was nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. It's not simple to see a lot. It's not simple. Once you see certain things, it's not so easy to come back. It's very, very painful. People don't realize what it is to see a lot of things. Like people who see a lot of things and know a lot of things, don't get so jealous so fast. It's like, once you start seeing the back end program of existence, it's not so simple. It's like you have to be a keli for it. You have to have a level of bittul, of emuna that is infinite, because you're touching places where, our regular perception of life, everybody makes, we try to make a little sense out of our life, even with all the challenges. And when all that goes down, it's a Churban Beis HaMikdash. The walls come crumbling down. But what happens in that moment? There's a question in Halacha. Rabbi Chaim Palaji asks, how can Hashem destroy the Beis HaMikdash? It says, Magid Dvarav LeYaakov Chukav Mishpatav LeYisrael. The mitzvahs that he tells others to do, he himself does. There's a mitzvah, loisa said, that you're not allowed to even demolish one stone in the Beis HaMikdash. Even in a shul. Hanoisitz even achas min ha-mizbeach min ha-heichel loika. Loisasun kein l'Hashem alekechem. In Parshas Re'eh. So Hashem says, I'm going to send Nebuchadnezzar, even calls Nebuchadnezzar my servant, Avdi, to destroy the base. I mean, you're not allowed to. The Jews don't deserve it. Fine, do something else with it. Who gave you a right to destroy the Beis HaMikdash? Chaim Palaji was a big halachic authority in Turkey. This is what he asks. A good, interesting question. In Yana de Yoma. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe once gave an answer with Shabbos Chazoin, Tavshin Mem, Shabbos Dvarim, Shabbos Chazoin. So he said a very powerful word. It says in Zohar that the first two Batei Mikdash didn't survive because they were built by people. And anything that's built by a person, Adam Yisayde Meyafar, V'Sayfer La'afar, what we build is mortal. That's how it is. Look what happened to Lehman Brothers, Beer Stearns, other great companies. The Titanic, unfortunately. The Titanic was the unsinkable ship. They say, that's the captain or somebody said, even God can't sink the Titanic. The Roman Empire, it also came to an end. Humans are mortal. Adam Yisayde Meyafar, V'Sayfer La'afar, like we say in Asana Toikef. Ketzitz Neuvel, Kechatzir Yavesh, Kecheres HaNishbar, Chavak Peireach, V'Chachaloim Yof. You want to do the Nusach? That's how it is. So the Zohar says the first two sanctuaries were destroyed. The third one is Binyana de Kushabrichu. It's God's edifice, so it's going to be eternal.
So why do we have fools that want to build third Beis HaMikdash?
Because they don't understand this. You have to be smart to have emuna. That's what we're explaining. The Pesi Yamin is not always such a Pesi. Zeh Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's like this. The halacha by a shul is, and this shul is a very good example for this because it's always under construction. 1824 Sheh is always under construction. That's why everybody feels comfortable here. A shul that's built, suddenly there's seats. This is your place. This is my place. Right here, you can't get too comfortable because in a week it's under construction. So we're good. It's a way of making everybody feel at home. There used to be a third building. I remember I came one day, it's gone. Where are we davening? I don't know, we'll find a new place. Tents. So I'm saying it's very applicable to this place. So it says in Halacha, if you're not allowed to destroy even one stone of the Beis HaMikdash or of a shul, so how do you renovate? So the answer is, if you're demolishing the shul in order to rebuild it in the same place, it's mutter. So the Mordechai, Meseches Megillah says why? He says, because when you're demolishing a shul to rebuild it in the same place, it's not called demolishing, it's called renovation. If you want to expand your house, you have a small kitchen. You want to expand your house, you have to take down the walls. Why? You want to destroy your house? No, you want to rebuild your house. In order to rebuild, you have to take down the walls so you could rebuild them an acre away, so you have a big kitchen with a big dining room, with a big family room, and the pool. So it's not called demolishing, it's called renovation. Well, you're crazy, you're destroying your house. I'm not destroying, I'm building. Taka, if I destroy the shul to rebuild it somewhere else, I want to take the lumber or the stones, then you're not allowed to. That's what the Mordechai explains in Masechta Megillah Lahalacha. So the Rebbe said that's pshat. If you look at the Churban Beis HaMikdash and you say he was just destroying the Beis HaMikdash to destroy it, then the Chaim Palaji is right, you're not allowed to do it. But if the whole purpose is you're destroying the walls in order to be able to create space for a third Beis HaMikdash, which is divine, so then the beginning of the binyan is the Churban. The Churban is not something different. The Churban is the beginning of the binyan. Unfortunately, it's almost 2,000 years, so that's how you know God is a Jewish contractor. You know, between the demolition and rebuilding takes a long, long time.
In his eyes, it's only 2 days.
You're right, but we're living on earth here. You're right. 2,000 years is only 2 days. Very good. I wondered why you said 2 days. You mean because 1,000 years is a day? Very good. So, but what does this mean in life? How do we apply this in life? Sometimes there's a situation, right? Infinity is banging on the wall. I say, come back later. I still have to make a career for myself. Come back later. Still got to marry off my kids. I still got to figure out my life. Come back. But sometimes it doesn't come back. It goes through the window. And what happens? All the walls come falling down. So you could look at it in 2 ways. You could say it's a Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbe says it's not the Churban Beis HaMikdash, it's the beginning of the building of the third Beis HaMikdash. The beginning of the building of the third Beis HaMikdash requires that the walls of a temporary, mortal, finite structure need to go down, because finite structures never ever endure, because they're built on finiteness. If I can apply it to marriage, I would say the same thing. Sometimes marriages are built, but they're based on mortal stones, mortal bricks. It worked. We fell in love, whatever, we liked each other. And then suddenly 10 years pass, 5 years pass, 20 years pass, 25 years pass, and there's cracks all over the marriage. And sometimes people say, my whole marriage is being destroyed. Maybe. But sometimes you have to look at it and say, your old Beis HaMikdash is being destroyed. It's true. Why? Or for what? Let's not say why, but for what? So that you could create an eternal structure. Binyan adeyad. A Beis HaMikdash hashlishi. That's Binyana de Kutchebrichu. That's not a mortal edifice. It's a divine edifice. A divine edifice looks very different. In order to have a divine edifice, I have to let go of the walls that I built, because those walls are very flimsy and frail. That's not going to hold up the structure. So the cracks are sometimes the best thing that ever happened to you. Doesn't mean it's easy. Demolishing a house is not easy. Everybody who's into construction or built a house themselves, you know the headache. The Gemara says, Kol haboyne binyan mismasken. Anyone who builds a building, it has a very serious effect. It's not easy, even if you have a good architect and contractor. It's hard. It's very hard. But it turns out that it's the greatest gift. Sometimes children do it to us. You know, they poke holes in these beautiful buildings we built. I mean, this is happening now constantly in people's lives. The only people who have perfect families are the people I don't know. The only people who have perfect marriages are the people I don't know. The people who have perfect lives are the people I don't know. Cracks show up. You could look at it and you could say, my temple is being destroyed. Or you could say, my third temple is knocking on the door trying to be renovated. It's not easy. But that's what Eretz means. Eretz is, that's where emuna comes in. Emuna is I let go of all the structures and I allow myself to be earth. But in earth, tremendous miracles happen. It doesn't impose itself. So back to relationships, like when it comes to parenting, you know, can you really see me and make space for me and believe in me and trust me? Don't change me, trust me. We want to take away pain from people. We can't always. But we could see it. We can empathize with it. We can have compassion for it. And we could look at it. And we can allow them to find their resources, because that's what they're going to have to find. I can't find your resources. You have to find it. But I could really be there. That's what the earth is. So that's why Eretz is called emuna. And Mala ha'aretz deis Hashem means ure'ei emuna, that the emuna becomes filled with deya, because it's integrated. So the avodah of ure'ei emuna is that emuna on its own is aloof, it's sublime. It could remain in the periphery of my psyche. Ure'ei emuna means shepherd it, integrate it, bring it in, feed it. Bring the makif into pnimi, the soiviv into the bamala. You typhus a little bit. He goes weiter and he says, what allows this Eretz to become a place of deya? What allows the emuna to be developed in a person and therefore to be integrated? What he calls hagdalas emuna, to be raised, like nurturing the flock, growing up, the emuna to blossom. This is the gift of Torah and mitzvah. Hashem says, we'll make man, Adam, in our image, Kabbalistically, it means Ramach mitzvahs hem Ramach evar in the Malka b'chinas Adam Adam al-Elyon shem hen Ramach hamshachas b'chinas Seviv Kalalman. The 248 mitzvahs, it says in Zohar, are the 248 limbs of the king. Adam le'elyon. Adam is called Adam le'elyon. He's called Adam because it reflects Adam from the word doima. It mirrors heaven. It mirrors Hashem. That's why we're called Adam. So he says the Ramach mitzvahs are called the Adam, the 248 limbs, kavayachal of the Adam le'elyon, because every limb channels a certain energy of the soul. So he says every mitzvah channels Soiv Kalalman. It channels the pure infinity of God. Generally, just like in a body, there's the right column, the left column, there's the center. You have 248 mitzvahs, which are the limbs of the king. You have Yamin, you have Smol, you have Emtza. And those are the three dimensions of Yiddishkeit. Torah, we say the world stands on three things. Torah, learning Torah, service, avodah, which is prayer, connection, and there's Gmilas Chasadim, which is generally kindness, charity, doing, helping. Torah, Shmaisav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Ramban says the whole Torah are Hashem's names. When we speak about learning Torah, the expression of Chazal is Kriyas HaTorah. What does Kaire literally mean? Calling somebody. Like Kaire B'Shimcha, right? Vayikra El Moshe, calling. Why? He says Torah is a fascinating idea. When you're learning Torah, you're calling. Who are you calling? You're calling, the whole Torah is God's name. So it's like, Yankul, Moshe, David. If Kol HaTorah Kulish Moshe Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so any word of Torah I read, who I'm calling. I'm calling God's name. I'm inviting God into my life. That's what Limud HaTorah is. Limud HaTorah means, it's like you're calling your friend. Come over, let's spend time. Chaim Yankel, Zelig, Shmedel. If Kol HaTorah is Shmaisav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's why it's called Koirei B'Torah, Kriyas HaTorah. Koirei really means to call somebody, right? Vayikra El Moshe, you say. Vayikra love. You called out to him. I call you, please come here. So Koirei B'Torah means, I'm not just learning an idea. I'm calling out for God. And that's why the whole Torah is a name. Any word of Torah, it's just another name of Hashem. It's just another way of calling out to Him. That's what Torah is. So that's the first step. And that's why it invites Soiv Kalalman, which is again the pure oneness of pre-creation, that's still here post-creation that we spoke about in the previous two classes. It's all a hemshach. So the first thing is Torah. Then you have Gemilas Chasadim, Zut Tzedakah, Lahachis Ruach Shvalim. What is Gemilas Chasadim? Generally it's tzedakah, to give life to those whose spirits have been humbled. Ruach Shvalim is the spirits of the humble, to give them life. That's what charity is. Someone who's destitute, someone who's needy, whether it's physical charity, financial charity, emotional charity, it's giving life to those who have been humbled. Tzedakah is not just money. Of course, it's also money. But tzedakah is a smile. Tzedakah is a hug. Tzedakah is a good word. Sometimes it's more powerful than anything else. Right? People don't have to be stingy with love. People sometimes don't have to be stingy. They're stingy. They may not be stingy with money, but they're stingy with love. They're stingy with a smile. They're stingy with a compliment. They're stingy with an inspiring word to empower, to uplift, to animate. Lahachis ruach shvalim. I have to tell you something I read. There's a fellow. His name was Jerome Mate, Dr. Jerome Mate. He was a forensic psychologist working for the police department in San Francisco. He died in 2015, and they interviewed him in the New Yorker, I believe. So I saw that he told a story. Before he died, he told a story. I mean, they interviewed him before he died. Yeah, it's probably obvious. So so what was his job in the police department? When somebody unfortunately committed suicide, he was sent out to go scan the home and the situation to make sure that there was no foul play. It was indeed a suicide and nothing else. And he did this for maybe 25, 35 years. The police called him, the guy was found dead, he would go to the house and he would check out the evidence and just make sure that this wasn't a cover-up from a murderer. So they asked him if there was any situation that really rattled him. So he said, unfortunately, after so many years, you get used to these horrible sights. But one time, something happened, and he says, it tore his heart apart. What happened? He was called by the police department. Somebody in his 30s jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco to his death. He jumped over the bridge, which is not so uncommon over there, unfortunately. He was sent to his apartment. So he went to his apartment, said it was a regular apartment. He was a single guy in his 30s, middle-class apartment, Balabatish. He's looking around, sniffing around, looking what's happening. And then he notices a note on the desk or on the table. He said that was not unusual. People usually, or at least often, leave notes. But when he read the note, he was torn. He said he was devastated. The person wrote as follows: I'm now going to be walking to the Golden Gate Bridge from my house. It was around a half an hour walk. I plan on jumping off unless somebody smiles to me on the way. So he walked, and not one person smiled. So that touched him. All right. So that's what he says. What's the idea of lahachiyas ruach shvalim? You never know how you pick up the ruach shvalim. You never know. You plant seeds, or you smile to a person. What's the big deal? It didn't cost you money, but you don't know what that means. I'm not saying that every person you just smile to because they're going to go kill themselves. I mean, let's hope that's not the situation with every person you meet. But the idea is very powerful. So what's the connection here? So he says, Al yidei sarusa de lasate sarusa de laela liyas amshachas sevev kalam b'chinas yidei de vashpala lahachis ruach shvalim. Every arousal from below creates an arousal from above. So exactly the same thing happens. What happens? There's the hamshach of sevev kalalmin lahachis ruach shvalim. What's the most humbled thing in the presence of pure infinity? Finiteness. So when a person goes out of his or her comfort zone, my own bubble, and I embrace a person who's humble or a person who's needy, that's what Gemilas Chasadim is, and I lift them up. So everything we do creates a ripple effect in all of reality, right? Yaakov Chalas, it's like a rope. Like it says in Tanya, you sway the rope on the bottom and has a ripple effect all the way on the top. So in the deepest place, the same thing happens. Hashem gives tzedakah. What does that look like? Soiviv Kalalman shares its presence with Mamala Kalalman, with life, with our life. So that's the second element. So you have Torah is calling, and tzedakah generates that flow. And then the third thing is Avodah Zukarbonis P'chinas Rish Be'esh Lamata L'Kolol Be'esh Lamayla. The third component of Yiddishkeit is Avodah, literally means Karbonis, the service in the Beis HaMikdash, which was basically a fire. The fire of allowing the human or the animal below to be absorbed in the heavenly fire. Today we have tefillah, davening. In lieu of karbanos, the whole institution of davening of Baruch Shamar Psukkah Zimra is all lahagdil meduras eisha ava shemamata lamayla, to raise, to blossom the fire of love from below to a heart, to above towards Hashem. Ba'omrei Baruch Shamar v'hayaylam. The whole tefillah is instituted as a carbon. When a person says Baruch Shamar v'hayaylam, blessed is he who spoke and the world came into existence. The Hainu b'maimer echad. We say maimer echad v'achakach nifrat aydei tas mamaras. The Gemara says that Bereshis is one maimer, and then it came specified in the 9 mamaras. But there's b'maimer echad, that's Baruch Shamar v'hayaylam. V'chein b'halaluka ki nizgav shmei levadei rak hoydei al aretz v'shamayim. Vayadem keren le'amei livnei Yisrael am kreve v'kayitze b'zeh b'shar psukim shemehem nimshach rish be'esh v'slatus haleiv. The whole davening is focused on the fact that one utterance basically is responsible for creation, and that's what we learned about in Perek Bais, what the union of emuna is. That the pure reality of Ein Sof is pre and post creation the same, and the whole world is an articulation of one mimer, and that one mimer is still in the essence. And when a person realizes this, but then there's only hoydai, the ray is on Eretz V'Shamayim, but Vayarim keren la'amai livnei Yisrael am kreve, to be able to have intimacy with the source. So all this is there to evoke a sense of yearning and desire and fire and passion. So So this then generates the flow. Kamayim aponim leponim, the face that you show to the water shows back to you. So that yearning for ultimate truth comes back, that ultimate truth becomes entrenched in the heart of the person. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, what allows the emuna to be integrated? That's generally the gift of Torah and mitzvahs. Ramache varim the Malka, Nasa Adam b'tzalmenu kidmusenu. Adam represents the Ramach mitzvahs esse and Shasam mitzvahs leisase, which are connected. The Evarim and the Gidden, the limbs and the sinews. The Evarim channel the life source, and the mitzvahs channel Sevav Kalalman. Specifically, he spoke about the three pillars of Torah, Veidig, Milas, Chasodim, and each one is a way of, it's the daily battle for transcendence, it's the daily communication with the pure infinity, either through learning Torah, which is inviting, calling out for God to come into my life. Tzedakah, which is my proactivity of going into a space outside of my comfort zone. Giving money to my wife, giving money to myself, that's not called tzedakah. It's giving to someone outside of that comfort zone. To raise the spirit of the destitute, financially, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, whatever tzedakah looks like according to the person's capacity. And that reverberates, that Hashem gives his tzedakah, which is Sevav Kalalman coming into your life, which is again the concept of tzedakah, giving. And then avodah, that's the person rising from below, like the fire of the carbon, and davening, which raises the spirit of love, that I want you, I yearn for you, and kamayim aponim leponim, you want me and I want you. The face that you show the water shows back. So that's why it's the three pillars of Torah, Veidig, Milas, Chasodim, that channel this emuna and integrate it into a person's life. That's the gift of Torah and mitzvahs. Let's bring in a chumash, one of the blue chumashim. Says V'zo, and now this is the deeper meaning of Moshe Rabbeinu saying what he began the mimer with, V'zo yis ha-mitzvah. After Matan Torah and Parshas V'eschanan, the Jews said we can all want Hashem speaking to us more because we're going to die. Moshe, you give us over what Hashem says. And Hashem agreed. He told Moshe, you stay with me and you'll give them over the mitzvahs. And then Moshe says, this is the mitzvah that God gave you to do in the land, which flows with milk and honey. And what is it? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad V'ahavta Hashem Elokech. Now the Rebbe asked in the beginning of the Maimon, that's not a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. He says, this is the mitzvah that he gave you to do in the land. Shema Yisrael is a chayvus haguf. Even in Chutz La'aretz is the mitzvah to say Shema. We have a mitzvah, it's not like Shemitah, it's not a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. But his introduction is, V'zois ha-mitzvah that you're going to do Lasses Ba'aretz. Eretz Zavas Chalav Dvash, and then Shema Yisrael, and that's the first mitzvah that he says after Matan Torah, after he records the story of Matan Torah in Parshas V'eschanan. V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha b'chalav avcha. The mitzvah of saying Shema, the mitzvah of Avos Hashem, the mitzvah of learning, the mitzvah of Tefillin, Mezuzah, all the mitzvahs in this parsha are not connected only to Eretz Yisrael, anywhere a Jew is. V'zel, the deeper meaning is V'zel is some mitzvah. Moshe Rabbeinu says right after Matan Torah, this is the mitzvah that Hashem said I should tell you. Lasses ba'aretz, to do in the land. And he continues, this is the land which is Eretz Zavas Chalav Dvash. And what is it? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So he asked all the questions on this in the beginning of the Maimers. He says, Kihine, in Parshas Shema Yisrael. What's the idea of Shema Yisrael? Hu Shahavai Yiseviv Kalalman. Shu Elokeinu, Shanachnu Maminim Bebchinas Emuna Levada Yeh Bebchinas Echad Bebchinas Gilui. B'Shiva Rekim U'Be'eretz Bebchinas daas v'Hargasha. Liyes bittul v'yichud amiti b'b'chenes yichud elah bittul b'metzias mamash. The idea of Shema Yisrael is there's the concept of daas. In davening, you have a lot of the daas. But Shema Yisrael is Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What is this? Havaya Elokeinu. Why don't you just say Shema Yisrael? Hashem Echad. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. 3 times the same word in one sentence. So obviously you're saying something. The answer is Havaya Yudke Vavke represents Soivav Kalam. Haya, Hoiva V'yiyah. Was, is, and will be, transcending time, space, and matter. Elokim, as we always learn, Elokim is Midas HaTzimtzum. That's why Elokim is the only name of Hashem that is in the plural. No names are in the plural. You don't have Yud Kei Vav Kei, singular and plural. It's not singular or plural. Elokim, you have Elokah, and you have Elokim, which is plural. In fact, it's even used for judges. Elokim Lo Yisakala. It's also only the name of Hashem that changes forms based on the subject. Elokecha, Elokechem, Elokeinu. You don't say in Yud Kei Vav Kei, mine, yours. Elokim is pliable, it's flexible. Why? Because it's B'malak Alalman. There's your God, there's my God. Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. There's the way Avram had genommen Elokus. There's the way Yitzchak had genommen Elokus. There's the way Yaakov took the access to Elokus. You access the divine in a way that I can't access it. Because every creature has its own energy that it channels that's unique. So that's Elokeinu, ours. It's intimate, it's mine. It's very individuated. The question is, can Havaya Elokeinu ever come together? That's the Chiddush of Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu, it's really Echad. You know, that's everything we keep on talking about. That daas and emuna are 2 separate things. That's just in the beginning of perception. In the beginning of perception, that's how it is. Because we live in a world of polarity. The statement of Shema Yisrael is here, Yisrael, Hashem, which is Elokeinu. It's all Hashem Echad. It's all Echad. That's what he says here. Havaya, which is Soivav Kalam, which is Elokeinu. And our relationship is emuna. This should all be Echad. And Echad, it says in Paiskin, the Beis Yosef says, Ches is the 7 heavens and the earth. Dalet is the 4 directions of the planet, east, west, south, and north. So the idea is it should become one, and one also manifested all the way on earth. And this is what he calls Yichud Amiti, Yichud Elah, the higher level of unity, Bittul B'Metzias Mamish, that the 2 don't remain separate things. Because even the individual identity of every creature becomes a channel for the infinity of the oneness pre-creation. So that's what Shema Yisrael. So Shema Yisrael is the recognition of the real fusion of these 2 things that we've been talking about. The daas and the emuna. So we talk about it as 2 because that's our vocabulary. But Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad is that there's a oneness. In the letting go, we also liberate the whole world. We liberate ourselves. So now, even the walls that we have and the boundaries we have become channels of Havaya Elokeinu, Havaya Echad, of oneness. That's what the Parshas of Shema Yisrael is. V'nase v'nimshech b'chinezu, adei hamshachas hamitzvos leb'chines eretz, hi b'chines emuna. So that's what Moshe means. This is the mitzvah you do in the eretz, in the land. Not just the physical land, but the eretz that we spoke about is what? It's the land of faith. Emuna is called eretz. As we explained, what's eretz? Eretz is just a receptacle that allows things to happen inside without control. It's open. It's humble. It's the lowest space. We walk on it, but no tchilas b'seifa. This is experience in the eretz. Hi b'chines emuna, and this emuna is eretz zavas chalav udvash. A land that flows with milk and honey. What does it mean it flows with milk and honey? Chalav u'b'chines hagdalas hamidus. What does milk do? Every mother in humans and also mammals, how do they raise their calves? The young are born, the infants are born, the fetus emerges. It can't live without chalav. The mother's milk nurses it and allows the original primal growth, physically and emotionally. And all the nutrients in mom's milk are very suitable for exactly for what the child needs. Incredible what a mother's milk is. Spiritually, what's chalav? If eretz is emuna, it flows milk. It's hagdolas hamidish tigdal ava misuteres. V'teitza me'ehelim elagilui. The inner love that's embedded in the heart, the ava misuteres belev, should come out. That's what milk does. It raises it, just like it allows the body to grow. Spiritually, it allows the love to grow. Ki hagdolas hamidis hoide b'chinas emuna b'chinas soiviv kol almin daika mashenkin b'chinas omalak lamalei tis gadol avasi v'yidasi l'Hashem mikasher tuchel nafshei seis. The greatest form, the greatest explosion of love comes from Soiviv because it transcends the containers of my identity. Dvash, what's honey? B'chinas mesikas v'tainug. Dvash is considered the sweetest food. Sweetness and bliss. Kamashakosov, oz tisaneg al Hashem. It's the bliss. V'hainu b'chinas Soiviv kol almin. The greatest bliss in life is a relationship with Soiviv kol almin. L'chayre, it's bittul b'metzias. But that's the greatest tainuk. The hainuk kasha yizboinen. When a person meditates, Kani Hashem lo yishanisi, I haven't changed. Va'atu kaidem shenivra olam. And the same one as pre-creation is post-creation. And only like the ray of the sun reaches earth and heaven. V'im kolzen, together with all of this, we say, Hallelujah, Shem Hashem. Even the name is exalted. Only the Rei is at its v'shamayim. But Vayorem keren le'amay tilil chasidim ne'solam kroivay. I'm not telling this to you to tell you that you don't matter. That you're connected to that infinity. That was the answer to your question last chat. This is who you are. The joy and the tainug, the honey that this creates, is very powerful. So from this eretz, from the gift of emuna, flows two things, milk and honey. Why is Eretz Yisrael praised with a place that flows with milk and honey? I mean, it's nice that it has milk and it's nice that it has honey. Other countries also have it. It flows with milk and honey. So he says spiritually this represents the gift of the emuna, eretz. It's an eretz that's zavas chalav udvash, the milk that nurtures the young and allows them to grow in the most powerful way. During those early, primal, most formative years, you grow even more than later. Spiritually, it's the growth of the ahava from a place that's embedded in the heart to a full expansive experience. And dvash, there's the element of blissful oneness. There's no bliss in the world like the ego giving up control. The death of the ego is the greatest bliss in life. It's true. You can argue from today till tomorrow. It's true. Because the ego is a counterfeit identity. And whenever you're invested in a counterfeit identity, the bliss is constantly a distraction. It's looking for something else because it's counterfeit. It doesn't really exist. So maybe the ice cream will help me. Maybe another $100,000 will help me. Maybe a new house will help me. Maybe a little covet will help me. Maybe a little taiva will help me. Maybe a little validation will help me. It gave from one thing, another thing, another thing, another thing. In the absolute letting go of everything and being a channel for the oneness pre-creation where I don't have the burden of having to exist. You can become a normal person. You let go of all self-consciousness. Bittul b'mitzias is the greatest form of dvash. There's no tainuk like that in the world. There's nothing as sweet in the world. Even in relationships. There's nothing as sweet and powerful in a relationship as when the husband and the wife can fall and lean into each other's infinity without defense mechanisms. Anybody knows what I'm talking about? So this is the eretz, as zavas chalav udvash. Okay, we'll take a break here. Be'ezer Hashem will continue the Maimer, and I hope to finish it on Thursday, Bli Neder. Again, I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, 3 o'clock, we're going to have a history lecture here in Tent Aleph on the history of the menorah and its true shape. Everybody is invited, 3 o'clock, Tent Aleph. And may, after the destruction of all the walls of the first 2 Batei Mikdash, may we see even before Tisha B'Av the new Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi v'sechazena ineinu b'shuvcha l'tzir b'rachamim, take it from Miyad Mamish. Everybody have a beautiful day. Yahafech l'simcha.
Don't we have to follow there? Don't we have to prepare to eliminate
Break down our walls. You're right.
at least the foundation so that
Yeah.
nothing's standing there? It's our job.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you. For that, you have to believe that it's yours.
Well, it's ours.
You're preaching to the converted above it all.